When we think about leadership, we usually imagine someone charismatic, extroverted, and full of emotion. But what if I told you that the most respected captain in the New York Police Department is exactly the opposite? Holt is serious, restrained, almost impenetrable, and still manages to inspire trust and loyalty from a chaotic team. It seems counterintuitive, right? How can someone who represses emotions achieve everything most people look for in a charismatic leader? The truth is that Holt teaches us something few dare to admit. You do not need to be expansive, loud, or popular to be extraordinary. He builds respect through silence, discipline, and an uncompromising sense of justice. And that is exactly where curiosity appears. What goes on inside the mind of someone who seems unshakable? Which internal conflicts shape every decision, every gesture, every serious look we see on screen? If you are a fan of cinema and psychology and want to understand the mind behind your favorite character, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss any video. But before that, comment below which character you want me to analyze here on the channel. Now let us go to the video. When the camera opens on the 9-9 precinct. There he is, impeccable posture, the expression of someone who would not react even if a meteor fell right in front of him. Captain Raymond Holt looks, at first glance, like a granite wall in uniform, but anyone who looks more closely notices subtle details. He is the kind of person who speaks very little but carries decades of history in his silences. And it is precisely in this contrast, a rigid man inside an environment full of chaos, that the magic begins. Because no one reaches this level of composure by accident. His trajectory inside the police force could easily be a movie on its own. Imagine growing up in an institution where, for years, being gay practically erased any chance of promotion. And even so, Holt moved forward, head held high, iron discipline, and a sense of purpose that many people only dream of having. He collected defeats, injustices, closed doors, but he kept going. And that persistence, even though it looks like coldness, reveals an emotional strength that few people notice at first glance. What is most curious is that, even with such a turbulent past, he does not become an aggressive activist or a bitter man. He becomes Holt, a man who fights for respect with the same natural ease that others fight for a salary raise. And this creates a silent identification with anyone who has ever tried to be seen without having to shout. After all, everyone at some point in life has felt invisible in a place where they had to prove twice as much. His rigidity does not come from coldness, but from self-protection. It is as if every rule he follows were a brick in a shield built over many years. And who has never created a hard shell just to survive in hostile environments? Sometimes we become too formal, too serious, too professional as a way of holding the weight of the world on our shoulders. Holt just took this to the level of 100 and did it with style. And when he takes command of the 9-9, you can feel the weight of responsibility in his eyes. It is not only about leading a squad, it is about finally occupying a space he fought for over decades. It is a silent victory, almost contained, like those achievements we take a long time to believe are real. You look at his posture and think, wow, this guy carried a lot to get here. And he really did. What is most fascinating is how he works as a living contrast inside that environment. While Jake jokes around, Boyle gets emotional about everything, and Gina lives in her own multiverse, Holt feels almost mythical. And paradoxically, that is exactly what makes him funny. His seriousness is so intense that humor is born naturally from the collision with the surrounding chaos. It is like trying to keep your composure in an important meeting while someone sends a ridiculous message to your phone. But behind that neutral face, there is someone observing everything with surgical attention. Holt is the type who feels more than he shows, who analyzes before reacting, and who looks for meaning in things most people ignore. And that gives him a fascinating depth. He may look rigid, but he is extremely aware of himself, of others, and of what everything represents. It is as if he were living in a constant emotional chess match. And this is the point where one of the most interesting parts of his journey begins, the tension between what he feels and what he shows. Because when you look closely, you notice small details, a micro smile, a slight eyebrow raise, a compliment delivered like a dramatic declaration. And that opens space for something he tries to hide with all his strength, but that will explode in the next conflicts. Internal conflicts and traumas, the tension between emotion and rationality. He lives on an emotional balance that almost no one notices at first. Holt feels everything with surprising intensity, but over the years he learned to hide any sign of vulnerability, and that creates a curious dilemma. Inside, he is full of nuances. On the outside, he looks like a block of ice. It is like someone laughing on the inside while keeping their face completely still just so they do not give anything away, and this constant restraint has a cost. The truth is that he has a deep need to maintain control, as if showing emotion would open a crack in the armor that took decades to build, and who has never held back tears at work just to avoid looking too fragile. Holt simply took that to a professional level. He believes that feeling is dangerous, that getting emotional can ruin everything he has achieved. But the more he holds it in, the more pressure builds inside that internal volcano. Sometimes this emotional rigidity becomes almost a cosmic joke, because his body tries to express itself even when he does not want it to. The micro smile, the shy compliment, the sparkle in his eyes when Jake calls him the emotional priest all reveal that he is not cold at all. He just does not know how to make room for that sensitive side. It is like someone who does not know how to hug but wants to hug. They just do not know where to start. And this creates a feeling of internal misalignment, as if two versions of him were living together at the same time. One that feels deeply and another that polices those feelings like a referee with a whistle. It is that classic conflict between what I want and what I should do, but taken to the Holt level. And it is striking how much this mirrors the dilemma of people who grew up needing to be strong all the time. The most beautiful part of this conflict is when he tries to express affection and fails in an awkwardly endearing way. He gives compliments that sound like reports, offers congratulations the way someone announces a funeral, delivers affection like a formal statement, and even so, the people around him understand, because his affection is not in the words, it is in the intention. The attempt itself is already proof that there is warmth where he once believed there was only logic. Emotionally, holding everything inside creates invisible cracks. Holt does not explode. He implodes silently and discreetly, like someone accumulating small frustrations until they turn into a tired wall. He feels the need to be rational all the time, but at the same time he misses simply being human. And this contradiction follows him through almost every scene, like a shadow that never leaves. When someone shows him genuine affection like Kevin or even Jake in his sincere moments, you can see discomfort mixed with gratitude. It is like giving an emotional gift to someone who does not know where to put it. He wants to reciprocate, he wants to participate, but he fears losing his composure. And that fear reveals a side so human that it almost clashes with the steel image he tries to project. And right at that point, the question he tries to avoid is born. How long is it possible to sustain such a compressed emotional life? At what moment does reason stop protecting and start imprisoning? This internal conflict opens a huge door to the next dilemma he faces, a dilemma that did not come only from within him, but from the very environment he had to survive in. The pressure of representing his community. Holt carries a weight that does not appear on his uniform, but shapes every step he takes, being one of the few black gay men in a command position in the New York police. It is not just a title, it is almost a living symbol, a representation he never asked for, but that everyone places on his shoulders. And this creates a silent responsibility that can feel suffocating at times. It is as if every mistake he makes becomes an argument for those who never wanted him there. The feeling is of always being watched by two different audiences, one waiting for him to fail, the other needing him to win. And that position is uncomfortable for anyone. He cannot simply be Holt because many people see him as proof, a test, an exception, and trying to be perfect all the time would already be exhausting in any profession. Imagine in an institution historically hostile to who he is. The hardest part is that, beyond fighting for his own career, he feels he must open doors for those who come after him. He knows that if he stumbles, someone will use that stumble as justification to block others. This creates an emotional pressure that is rarely spoken out loud, but is felt in every gesture he makes. It is the kind of responsibility no one should carry alone, yet he takes it on with the seriousness of someone defusing a bomb. When he talks about his journey, the rejections, the jokes, the doors that closed without explanation, you can feel that there is a social trauma there, transformed into discipline. He cannot afford to relax because the environment around him does not relax with him. It is like constantly walking through an emotional minefield, stepping carefully so as not to trigger dormant prejudice. That kind of tension wears down even the strongest soul. Even so, he finds ways to resist without losing elegance. He does not respond with shouting, he responds with competence. He does not prove himself through speeches, he proves himself through results. And that is inspiring because it shows a form of resistance that does not rely on direct confrontation. At the same time, it is a reminder that this kind of silent battle is exhausting. Anyone who has ever had to be an example in any space understands this feeling. What is curious is that when someone recognizes him not just as an officer, but as a man, you can see him lower his guard slightly. Not completely, of course. He is Holt, but there is a subtle spark, almost like a lighting glitch, that shows he feels seen beyond the symbol he became. It is like when someone looks at you and sees the person, not the role you were forced to play. And that feeling, no matter how small, is priceless. And even while maintaining impeccable posture, there are moments of quiet exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but soul-deep exhaustion. That feeling of, if I lower my guard for 1 second, everything falls apart. He lives in a constant state of alert because he knows the price of existing in a system that questions his very presence. And that continuous emotional state wears anyone down, even the most disciplined of captains. But deep down, the question echoing inside him is simple and devastating. How do you continue being a symbol without losing yourself as a person? How do you keep representing an entire group without carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders? This conflict opens space for another one that intertwines directly with it. One that touches his relationship with perfectionism and the silent weight of never being allowed to fail. Perfectionism, extreme discipline, and the fear of failure. Holt lives as if he is constantly being evaluated, even when he is alone at home with Cheddar. His perfectionism is not vanity, it is survival. He learned that any misstep could be used as ammunition against him, so he turned discipline into a lifestyle. But living like that is like walking with your spine permanently too straight. At first, it looks elegant, then it starts to hurt. And that pain has been collecting its toll for years. What is most curious is that he does not demand perfection only from himself. He demands it from the world around him as well. Not out of arrogance, but because he believes that if everything is flawless, he runs fewer risks. It is a defense mechanism disguised as professionalism, almost like someone who cleans the entire house before having guests over out of fear of judgment. He organizes his own life with the same intensity and sometimes goes too far without realizing it. This perfectionism creates a hidden anxiety inside him, one no one notices because he never trembles, never stutters, never hesitates. But emotionally, he lives in a constant state of "I cannot make mistakes." Anyone who has lived like this knows how exhausting it is to try to control even what is beyond your control. And deep inside him, there is a profound fear, the fear of failing, and, by doing so, confirming the negative expectations of those who never believed in his potential. And when something goes off plan, and in the 9-9 it always does, you can see a small crack in his armor. He tries to keep his composure, tries to mentally reorganize the facts, tries to hold everything in place. But inside, there is frustration as strong as his need to maintain appearances. It is as if every unexpected event reminds him that no amount of discipline can fully keep chaos from walking through the door. His perfectionism also shows up in relationships. He does not handle it very well when people display too many human imperfections. Not because he does not understand, but because he fears everything will turn into emotional chaos. He tries to control even other people's feelings as if he were organizing sensitive files. And of course, that pushes people away, because no one can control the world without losing a bit of spontaneity. At the same time, this side of him brings an interesting depth. He wants to be better, always. Not out of ego, but out of responsibility. He believes that if he is not impeccable, someone will use that as proof that he should not be there. So he puts triple the effort into everything, even the simple things. Who has never known someone who studies 3 times more because they think that if they miss a single comma, the whole castle collapses? And the most touching part is when he realizes, even if only for seconds, that this endless pursuit of perfection also prevents him from relaxing and feeling. It is as if he lives in a constant emotional vigil. He does not allow himself to fail because he does not allow himself to be fully human. And that creates an invisible weight that he carries even in moments of joy, as if even happiness had to be moderated. But this fear of failing, of disappointing, of being seen as insufficient, ends up pushing Holt toward another even deeper conflict: the challenge of leading a team full of intense personalities without losing his humanity in the process. Because, as much as he tries to control everything, the 9-9 keeps reminding him that people are not spreadsheets, and that hits him directly. Leading without losing humanity, leading the 9-9 is almost like trying to keep composure in a room full of hyperactive children, except the children are armed detectives. Holt knows he needs to be firm, because any slip can compromise the respect he fought so hard to earn. At the same time, there is a part of him that wants to be lighter, closer, more human, but he fears that this humanity will be interpreted as weakness, and this dilemma pokes at him every single day. It is visible how he tries to balance authority and affection, even without admitting it. He observes each member of the team with almost scientific care, trying to understand how to guide them without losing the professional atmosphere. But the 9-9 is not a company of stern people. It is organized chaos with strong personalities and even stronger egos. And for him, coming from extremely rigid environments, this is a daily cultural shock. The funniest part is that when he tries to be more human, everything comes out a bit crooked. He gives advice as if he were reading an instruction manual, delivers compliments like he is filling out a report, and celebrates promotions as if he were announcing the weather forecast. But this awkward way of showing care ends up working, because everyone there understands that for him, this is already huge. Sometimes being affectionate is exactly about trying, even without grace. At the same time, there is a very deep fear inside him, the fear of being seen as a captain who is too nice and losing authority. He knows his team is fun, but he also knows his career did not give him the luxury of being carefree. This makes him monitor every move, every word, every reaction. It is like driving with the handbrake on. You move forward, but always with the feeling that you might skid. Still, no matter how much he tries to control himself, the 9-9 ends up melting some of his layers. It is impossible to live with Jake without laughing, impossible to live with Boyle without feeling some kind of tenderness, impossible to live with Terry without realizing that leadership can also come from the heart. And this coexistence pushes Holt into an emotional zone he does not fully master. He wants to participate, but he is afraid of losing himself in the process. The most beautiful part is when he allows himself small breaches of affection. An almost imperceptible smile here, a warmer good job there, a gesture of support that he pretends is completely professional. It is curious how these small concessions make the team feel more seen, more connected to him. And at the same time, they show that this humanity he fears so much does not destroy his leadership. It improves it. But internally, he still struggles with the feeling that he needs to be a constant pillar, even when he is tired. He feels that if he lets his guard down, the team collapses with him. That is heavy. And it is heavier because he never learned how to ask for emotional help. Holt leads like someone carrying a backpack full of stones, but says everything is fine because a captain must endure. But no one endures alone forever. And it is exactly under this kind of pressure, between being a leader and being human, that another conflict emerges that deeply affects him. How to balance a career that demands everything with a personal life that often gets pushed into the background. Reaching this point opens a huge door to an even more intimate challenge. The struggle between career and personal life. Holt dedicates so much of his life to work that at times it feels like he only exists inside the precinct. The uniform is almost an extension of his skin, and that creates an interesting conflict, because despite deeply loving what he does, he also has a marriage, a home, a brilliant husband, and a dog who practically has an academic degree. But in practice, work always takes up the space that should belong to Kevin. And he knows this even when he tries to pretend he does not. It is clear that he sees his own career as a moral commitment. It is not just about being a good captain, it is about honoring the fight that brought him there. The problem is that this sense of duty ends up draining energy that should naturally go to his emotional life. Who has never focused so much on a goal that they forgot to look at the person beside them? Holt lives in this automatic mode, as if balancing these areas were a luxury he cannot afford. Kevin, on the other hand, understands this side of him, but also feels the impact of the constant absence. Their relationship is full of respect, but also marked by small, emotional noises. Nothing explosive, because both are too polite for that, but you can feel there is a subtle distance. A canceled dinner, an interrupted conversation, a couple commitment that becomes secondary when an important case appears at the 99. And no matter how disciplined he is, his heart does not function like an organizational spreadsheet. He feels guilt when he disappoints Kevin, but he also feels fear of not being impeccable at work. It is as if he is always owing something to someone, a feeling that tires, drains, and leaves anyone emotionally split in half. The most curious part is that, even realizing this, he keeps repeating the cycle. At the same time, it is evident that he loves Kevin in a very deep way, even if expressed in extremely formal ways. When they are together, there is a calm that the precinct never offers. It is almost like seeing another version of Holt, softer, more natural, less worried about the weight of the world. But these versions of him almost never meet, and that becomes fuel for a constant internal conflict. And it is interesting to notice that he tries to compensate for the absence with small demonstrations of affection that are highly calculated, a gift thought out with impeccable logic, a gesture of support delivered with zero facial expressiveness, a special night planned like a tactical operation. It is adorable, but it also shows how much he tries to rationalize even love. And loving, in the end, does not fit into such rigid formulas. Work is a fortress for him, a fortress where he feels competent, safe, and in control. Intimacy, on the other hand, is a territory that demands vulnerability, surrender, presence, and that is scary. Not because he does not love, but because he does not know how to deal with the idea of failing emotionally. He can command an entire team with military precision, but making room for fragility is still a challenge that destabilizes him. And it is precisely in this difficulty of balancing career and personal life that another even deeper conflict arises: the clash between what he demands of himself and what his body and mind can sustain. Because no matter how disciplined and strong he is, even Holt has limits, and those limits begin knocking at the door. Recognizing limits and vulnerabilities, Holt rarely admits that he is tired, frustrated, or overwhelmed, because in his mind, a captain does not show weakness. This constant denial creates a silent, almost invisible tension that builds up day after day. It is like holding a rope stretched tight for years without letting go until every micro-movement starts to hurt. He carries this load alone, and that makes it clear how vulnerability is unknown territory for him. Even when his body or mind asks for a pause, he finds ways to ignore the warning. Holt believes that feeling emotional or physical exhaustion is a luxury he cannot allow himself. But the effect is inevitable. Small failures begin to appear, silent irritations, more rigid decisions, aware that no one notices but that he feels deeply. And this creates a conflict between discipline and human need. What is fascinating is how he deals with this almost invisibly. He creates systems, rituals, and protocols so that nothing falls out of place, trying to mask the impact of the pressure he feels. The coffee is strong, the schedule is rigid, control is total, all to avoid facing vulnerability head-on. It is a constant attempt to turn fragility into logistics, but fragility does not get organized, it only gets felt. When a colleague notices signs of fatigue or frustration, he reacts with neutrality, almost as if saying there is no problem, there is no weakness, move forward. But inside, every small gesture, every moment of tension is recorded in his mind. Holt observes and records not only others, but also himself, in a silent and constant self-examination. It is almost a secret ritual that keeps his fortress standing. And even with this facade, there are moments of emotional fissure, small breaches that only the most attentive notice, a longer look at Kevin, a sigh in the empty office, an expression that quickly disappears before anyone notices. These are fragments that reveal that, no matter how much he wants to control everything, humanity always finds space. It is a daily struggle between rationality and emotion that never ends. The difficulty of admitting limits is also reflected in his way of leading. He expects the maximum from himself and, unconsciously, also from the team. This creates an almost impossible standard to sustain, where any slip feels like a personal stumble. He needs everything to be perfect because he fears that failure is a sign that he is not enough. And this weight is silent, constant, invisible to those who do not know his mind. At the same time, this resistance reveals an admirable side. Even under intense pressure, Holt does not give up. He remains firm, focused, maintaining composure and excellence in everything he does. This determination is inspiring, but it also reveals the price he pays for not allowing himself to be vulnerable. It is a delicate balance between strength and fragility that few people manage to understand. And it is exactly at this point that space opens for the next look at him. How all these internal conflicts shape the personality we see, his choices and behaviors in everyday life, because every gesture, every decision, every restrained expression originates from this set of internal tensions that he carries silently. How these conflicts shape Holt's personality, all these internal conflicts intertwine and shape a Captain Holt, who is at the same time admirable and deeply human. He is strict because he was forced to be disciplined, because he learned it was necessary, reserved because he felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. Every restrained gesture, every serious look, every dry joke that slips out from time to time is the result of this complex journey. Holt is not just the captain of the 9-9, he is a map of emotional resistance. What we see on screen, the rigid posture, the almost comical seriousness, the extreme perfectionism, is not just style, it is defense. It is armor built from years of fighting prejudice, failure, and external expectations. He learned that the world does not forgive slips and that weakness can be costly. That is why every small gesture of humanity is so powerful, because it emerges from someone who masters the art of containment. At the same time, this combination of discipline and vulnerability creates unexpected moments of connection. Holt manages to be a leader and a mentor, a friend and a partner in a way that seems contradictory but is deeply true. He teaches through silence, cares through subtle gestures, and influences through his presence alone. And that makes him a character who reminds us that strength and sensitivity are not opposites, but complements. It is curious how this internal tension also generates humor. The comedic situations arise exactly because he tries to control everything, but the world around him is chaotic and unpredictable. He reacts with logic, but the environment forces emotion to escape. And it is in this clash that the audience identifies and laughs, because who has never tried to control life only to watch everything turn into a mess? Every decision Holt makes, every choice he takes, carries the mark of these silent conflicts. From the way he leads to the small gestures of affection with Kevin, everything reflects the effort to balance rationality and emotion, duty and desire, discipline and humanity. He is a living synthesis of someone who survived hostile environments without losing his essence. Even with all this weight, Holt keeps moving forward. He builds bridges where the world built barriers, finds joy in small victories, and maintains integrity even when no one is watching. And it is exactly this consistency that fascinates us, because it shows that true strength is not about never wavering, but about continuing to try even when the weight feels unbearable. And, deep down, this silent construction of personality leaves room for something greater. Holt's story is also about the internal struggle of all of us, about learning to balance who we are with who the world expects us to be, about finding humanity amid rigidity, and about allowing ourselves to exist beyond external expectations. He is mirror and enigma at the same time, and it is at this point that the loop remains open. Every gesture, every choice, and every look from the captain reminds us that the process of emotional balance never ends, and that, no matter how unreachable it may seem, there is always a way to connect discipline with emotion, work with personal life, rigidity with humanity, which naturally leads us to reflect on the next level of his journey. So, what did you think about diving into the mind of Captain Holt? Were you able to notice how every gesture, every serious expression, and every decision carry years of experience, discipline, and internal conflict? Now I want to know from you, which character would you like me to analyze next on the channel? Leave it in the comments because I would love to bring that analysis to you. If you enjoyed this content and want to keep exploring characters in a deep way, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. That way you do not miss any analysis and keep learning about these fascinating personalities we love. Each character we analyze is like a mirror, reflecting dilemmas, emotions, and decisions that somehow connect with our own lives. Holt shows us that strength and vulnerability can coexist, and that discipline, when paired with humanity, creates incredible leaders and people. And remember, every detail, every look, and every silence has a reason. Observing this helps us understand not only the characters, but also ourselves. So leave your comment, subscribe, and come discover more about the psychological universes hidden behind the faces we love on television.